Welcome back to the Stronghold Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Barton. Today in episode 8, The Dry Fast, I will be discussing the recent 7-day dry fast I undertook, based on the book by August Dunning called The Phoenix Protocol. Now, before I jump in, I want to make two things very clear. One, I am not a doctor or recommending this course of action for anyone at all. This also means that I will be speaking to my experiences and at a high level. I understand most of the science of the fast, but I'm not comfortable communicating at that level to a larger audience. Second, although I cover weight loss during this experience and weight changes since coming out of the fast, weight loss was never a goal of this process. So, what is a dry fast? Well, a dry fast that involves consuming no water and no food for a period of time. In this case, 7 days. Now wait, Dave, you can't live for longer than 3 days without water. Really? So where did that idea come from? Well, I actually looked that up because I got that question frequently as I discussed preparing for the dry fast and during the dry fast. So from what I've been able to find, and please, if anybody finds this, please share it with me or share it on social media with me. As much as I can find that the source of the 3-day number, it likely comes from an experiment that two scientists did in 1944, where they ate only dry food for a period of time. One of the scientists ended the experiment at 3 days in, and the other at 4 days in. However, since they stopped the experiment before being in any real danger, the actual survival time at room temperature, it likely exceeds 3 to 4 days. And I would say it certainly exceeds 3 to 4 days. Now, if you just think about it, there's obviously many factors that determine this time, including age, activity levels, health, environment, body type, and more. So, long story short, I'm pretty certain and know from personal experience that I can exceed 3 days without water. So what were my goals? Why are you even doing this, Dave? Well, my first goal is autophagy. And very simply put, autophagy is the cleaning of cells and the restoration of metabolic health. Autophagy also, as the author writes, produces another welcome side effect that assisted my dry fast. You see, water makes up 60% of the volume in weak cells, and when they are degraded, they provide the body with another source of water, something called endogenous water. My second goal of this dry fast was to kill pathogenic organisms like viruses, bacteria, and most importantly, parasites. You see, this is unique to dry fasting, as all of those organisms rely on external water intake, and without it, they start to die off around the 5-day mark. The final goal, and admittedly a difficult one to measure, is natural stem cell production to repair and restore my body. So, how am I going to measure this? I went pretty rudimentary, and I took a picture of myself going into the fast. And then I placed an X on all the areas of my body that were injured or I had pain. Then coming out of the fast, I decided that I would record how those areas felt. So a couple things as I prepared to start this dry fast process were my weight. I started off right around 200 pounds, 199.8 pounds. And a couple days out, I started to scale back carbs. I increased my water intake. I increased salts, trace minerals, and electrolytes. And that was about it for my preparation going into the dry fast. So I jumped in. Day 1. Really, there wasn't much to report. But I will say that doing this fast with my wife, we intentionally decided to ground each day, including walking outside at a light pace, getting early morning sun, and wading or cold plunging in our local lake every day of the 7-day dry fast. Now, we're here in Minnesota, and the lake was at about 50 degrees. So It was invigorating and refreshing. One thing I found during the entire process was that water, and first of all, no, I did not intake a drop into my mouth in the lake or showering. But water was a savior during this process. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt calm and more connected to the currents of the water and the environment as the fast went along. And of course, since this is a dry fast, you're going to get some bathroom reports. So I apologize up front if that makes anyone uncomfortable. But day one, the report was everything was normal. Pee was normal tones, but there was no poo. I'll update again when this changes. And I ended the day down about 4.5 pounds. Going into day two, really a lot of the experience was similar to day one. I started the day by wading in the lake and walking outside. Later in the evening, I conked out on the couch as I was likely getting into ketosis. As an active person, I really scaled back activity during the entire 7 days. And boredom would quickly become my nemesis during this process. Being active and eating take up a lot of time. And when you're not doing that, filling in those blanks, it takes some effort. One interesting thing that I've done with prior fasts, and I carried forward into this one, was I like cooking a bunch of food, which I know it sounds crazy during a fast to be cooking food. Isn't that torturous? And it might be. But what I really feel like is it kind of tricks my body into thinking, hey, here comes some food. Of course, it didn't get delivered. I ended day two down 10.5 pounds and sitting around 189 pounds. Day three was a fun day. And again, the water was a savior during the process, and it kept things interesting. And it kept some of the boredom at bay. But my wife and I cold plunged in the lake early in the day. Also, day three found me taking no naps. I felt like I was settling in. I had a good energy. I was in ketosis, and I was really relaxed overall. I ended day three at 187 pounds, so down about 12.5 pounds. Day four found me at a really low energy. But what I experienced was a gradual increase in energy as the sun started to come up in the morning. I felt like my circadian rhythm was starting to reset, and my wife and I waded in the lake once again. At the end of the day, I tested my ketones with a strip test, and I was in moderate ketosis. My pH and uric acid levels were normal, and my heart rate the entire fast was fine. It never elevated. It never got low where I had concerns about it. I ended day four at 184 pounds, down 15.5 pounds roughly. Day five, this is where I would say things really got interesting and rewarding for me. Test strips showed that I was in even deeper ketosis. After wading in the lake again at sunrise, my mind and soul, they felt enhanced on day five. I had started to experience dreams being really vivid and coming on quickly as I went to sleep. Now, the downside of the dream portion of this experience was that day five was the second consecutive day, yesterday, day four included, that found me eating food or candy only to remember that I'm fasting. What the hell? Well, both times I woke up and they're thankfully a dream, but I woke up so disappointed and I felt instant relief when I realized they were just dreams. I also started to feel a real sense of gratitude. While I still had some loved ones and friends that were concerned about this endeavor, it also was very apparent that I had a crew forged in love that was in my corner, rooting me on and curious about the experience. Some notes from day five, and as I mentioned, this is when the fast really became real and interesting and rewarding, was that on day 5, I wasn't really craving food or water. Now, I did have a bit drier mouth on day 5 than the previous 4 days that were really no change at all. I was also in deep ketosis, like beet red on the strips. Pee was a little darker, think like apple juice. And at the end of day 5, I weighed in at the latest since my sophomore year in high school, 180 pounds. Oh, and I did some yoga stretches during day 5, and that got things moving, let's say, in the bathroom department. Day 6 was interesting as well. I had my first restless night of sleep the night before. But once I got sleeping, it was okay. The biggest issue was my heart. And no, not from a rapid heartbeat or heart murmurs or anything scary. It was actually that my heart was so close to my ribs now and my mattress, where there had been a layer of fat or let's say protection. I didn't feel like there was much there anymore, and I could feel my heart pumping. And if I laid on it certain ways, it was really annoying and hard to get to sleep. Stem cells. I'd mentioned that was a goal, but how do you measure it? Well, let me share something interesting that happened late on day 5. My feet and my knees started to hurt and get really warm. I went to bed, shifted around, they continued to hurt, they continued to get warm, and they were at spots like my toes from running, my knees from where I had injuries previously running. When I woke up on the morning of day 6, none of them hurt. And none of them hurt like they weren't hurting like the night before. They weren't warm. They didn't hurt. Like the injuries I had sustained from running in a long endurance season, they felt great. Once again on day 6, dreams came into play. As for the 3rd night in a row, I had a dream about breaking fast with something stupid and being so pissed. That 3rd night, I dreamt that I had a drink of apple juice. I also had along with a recurring dream of being on time for work, but while driving, I couldn't seem to make any progress and ended up late. What's that dream about anyway? If anyone knows what that means, please reach out and share with me. Day 6 also started to feel like mile 22 of my recent marathon. I knew I was going to finish, but I just wanted to be done. So that day, I decided I was going to kind of have a boss bitch kind of day. I took an Epsom salt bath. I lit a scented candle, and I listened to 432 hertz healing music. And it was everything I dreamed of, and more. Just to even out that boss bitch experience with something manly, my wife and I went plunging into a snowy lake. We had snow early in the season here in Minnesota. And when we went to the lake, I would say I was probably about 50-50 of whether I was going to plunge in the lake. But while I was waiting, I turned around and saw my amazing wife walking down the snowy beach in a swimsuit, doing her first polar plunge. And I couldn't let her show me up, so I cold plunged. The night of day 6 was fun. I started to plan my menu for the next day. Now, don't get too excited. The headliner was going to be coconut water. But I got to plan a menu. This was becoming real. And I was almost done. I ended day 6 weighing in at 177.2 pounds, down 22.6 pounds from the start of the 7-day fast. On day 7, something came to me, and it was just an appreciation for the mind and body connection and how amazing it is. Because on the morning of day 7, I woke up and peed. I know, I told you there'd be bathroom updates. But I mean, I peed a lot. After not really peeing much for basically 6 days, it was like my mind was telling my body that we had made it and it could release those liquids. Before breaking fast later in the day, I weighed in one final time, and I was down 29.8 pounds, weighing in at 170 pounds on the dot. I know a lot of that, probably about half, was water weight, and as I mentioned, I've now gained that back. But as I broke fast later in the day with an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet, no, I'm just kidding. I really did not break fast with food. I took it easy to avoid something called refeeding syndrome. Look it up. It's not good. But when I broke fast, as the author writes, I broke fast intentionally, carefully. I drank something called, well, I call it the crab dinner. What it is it's 8 ounces of warm water, a half teaspoon of baking soda, and I added a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt because that's what my body was calling for. I stirred it up and I took a drink. For the first time in 7 days, I drank something and consumed something. And I can't describe it. It was warm water, baking soda, and salt. It should not have been magnificent. It should not have been a memorable experience, but it tasted like a crab dinner. Like that salt you taste when you dip the crab in the warm butter and you consume it. I can't describe it. You can only experience it. But I really wish everyone could have that experience and that appreciation for food, or in this case, liquids. After that, and this is a little bit maybe gross, but I brushed my teeth. I hadn't brushed my teeth the entire fast. They said you could, but in my mind, some liquid would have been consumed. A drop of water would have gone down my throat, and I was not here for that. And since I wasn't eating or drinking anything, my teeth felt clean. But my tongue was white and dry and gross. After letting that sit and my digestion start again, I had something magnificent. I call it the Anderson, after my friend Greg, who blazed the trail of this dry fasting process and experience. So here's what you need to make an Anderson. You grab a big glass, some shaved ice, and you fill that glass up to the very top with coconut water. I filled that up, and after my first sip, I honestly cried. I teared up. It was emotional. For the first few days out of the fast, I took it easy. I consumed broth. I drank pressed beet, celery, carrot, and ginger juice that my wife makes. It's so good. And I ate some watermelon. I let my body kind of get back to eating, consuming, drinking. But I tell you what, all the flavors tasted so amazing. My taste buds seemed to have reset. Overall, the fast was an amazing experience and a success for my stated goals. I also believe that my mind was so happy to rest from a long training season that it prepared my body to be healed. As a result, I think that my body was, I guess I would describe it as in a state to receive the fast. A little over a week removed from the fast, here are some observations and noticeable changes, starting with my goals going into the dry fast. First of all, my goal, as I mentioned, was autophagy, or the cleaning of my cells, and restoration of metabolic health. I guess how I would measure that in one way is that my weight has come back up to around 192 to 195 pounds and remain there. This is about 10 to 13 pounds below my normal weight. And I've made no changes to diet or activity. we'll see where that goes and see where that levels off moving forward. The second goal that I stated was to kill pathogenic organisms like viruses, bacteria, and most importantly, parasites. And truthfully, I'm not sure. I didn't perform a close inspection of anything exiting my body, if you know what I mean. So I guess that's to be determined. The third goal was natural stem cell production to repair and restore my body. So how to measure? As I mentioned, I took a picture and placed an X on the areas of my injuries and pains. Then coming out of the fast, recorded how they felt. And let me tell you this, my knees feel amazing. And for anyone that's had knee pain or back pain or neck pain and either had that surgically repaired or gotten to a point of restoration, you can appreciate when I say that my knees feel amazing. Better than they felt for years. My right rib, I had sustained a rib injury from jiu-jitsu years back. It's a non-factor. And that's been tough to sleep on for over 2 years. Finally, my right side of my jaw, which I experience some pain with occasionally, is feeling a little bit better. It's not 100%, but it is feeling better. So I don't know if that speaks to stem cell production, but that does speak to repair and restoration of my body. Another factor and benefit of the dry fast is mental. I heard a friend talk about the brain's theta state recently. Your brain tends to produce theta waves when you're sleeping or dreaming. Theta brain waves can also occur when you're awake and in a very deeply relaxed state of mind. And that's where I find myself a lot lately. My mindset is in a much deeper state more frequently. I'm not sure how to explain that feeling outside of it. It just feels like I can quiet the world around me much easier. On the flip side of that, I'm also much more sensitive to factors, people, or environments that disturb this state and kind of working through how I'll deal with that going forward. The last thing I'll point out is my soul. In all aspects of mind, body, and soul, I'm very focused on what I am now putting back into my body. After going through this dry fast, you felt like you had really carved myself down. I had taken everything out, and now I get to put things back in. So from a mind, body, and soul perspective, I'm kind of focusing on it like that. Like, what do I want to put back in? What do I want to expose myself to? And from a soul standpoint, I'm focused on the verse from Proverbs 4:23. It says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life." This dry fast has given me back to me in the ways I've shared today. It continues to give. And in a way I can't put into words yet, it's shifted my energy as a human. This could be my body repairing, and it could be the toxins of life, both man-made and occult, being exited from my body or removed. But I'm praying to discover more about this as time passes along. I hope this podcast has encouraged you to think outside the box of Western medicine and start to look within yourself for healing. I'll finish with a quote by Marcel Proust. He wrote, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." Thank you for joining me and listening into the Stronghold Podcast.